Awesome, hey guys, it is absolutely awesome to see you guys, and I'm assuming you know that I enjoy movies. I mean, like, it's two of my playlists on this channel. I'm a huge fan of movies, and as you can see through my Funko Pops, I'm also a huge fan of collecting things. So needless to say, I have got a big collection of DVDs, and so I decided that I was going to rank them all from worst to best, and that's what this video is about. And I regret it because I have literally spent the last 4 hours trying to just get everything in the right order. I've been spending the last few days just ranking all of these DVDs. So these rankings are just my personal favorites. So you're going to see some that are, you know, like critical masterpieces, and they're going to be below some of the films that you're kind of like, how the stuff did that film get up there? But I just flipping love that movie. So you are going to get a few where you're going to be like, oh, that should actually be over there, and this should be down there. But honestly, it's my list, it's my favorites. So guys, let's actually just jump right into it. Dr. Dolittle 5, I've never finished this film. I tried. The only reason I have it is because a friend gave it to me for Christmas, and it adds another DVD to my collection. Red Dog, I have never watched this film, but it cannot be as bad as Dr. Dolittle 5. Okay, this is my Superman box set, but the one we are talking about right now is Superman 4, A Quest for Peace. And if you have watched that movie, you know exactly why it is so low on this list. It is just so incredibly disappointing, especially how good the first two films were. And talking about Superman 4, we've also got Superman 3, which is just, again, it's just a train wreck. We've got another box set, another DC property, and this time we are talking about Suicide Squad. I did not enjoy this movie. Everyone built it up to such a high degree when the trailers came out. And the idea of us supporting the bad guys, I've just never really enjoyed. And honestly, it wasn't a good film. Spy Kids 3D, the ultimate children's film, I have to say. Like, it's 3D, it's about video games. It makes a child in me, you know, happy and smile. I haven't watched it for a long time, but I would probably enjoy it if I watched it again. Justice League Crisis on Two Earths, most boring animated film I've ever watched. I'm not even lying. I really built this up in my head. I thought it was going to be absolutely awesome, and I was incredibly disappointed. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, in my opinion, definitely the worst live-action Spider-Man film. I love Andrew Garfield as an actor. I really wish that the Amazing Spider-Man films did better, but this film really left a lot to be desired. The Ant Bully is, honestly, it's such a flipping fun movie, and I might be a little bit biased because I enjoyed the computer game so much as a child as well. But honestly, I loved it, and honestly, if you haven't watched it yet, give it a watch, it'll surprise you. And this random green box is actually Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is an animated sequel to a live-action film, and while I did prefer the live-action films, I think it is a worthy sequel. So this next film is honestly going to annoy a lot of people, and I'm quite nervous to do this, but it's The Shining, and to be 100% honest, I do not know what all the fuss is about this film. It's a very pretty film, it really is, and some of the shots they get are just absolutely incredible, and I love Jack Nicholson's portrayal. But this film disappointed me so much, and I think it's my own fault because I built it up because I'd read so many reviews and people talking about it being such a flipping awesome film, and when I watched it, I was so let down. For a horror film, I never once got scared, and to me, like, nothing ended up making sense, and I've read all of the fan fictions and all of the, like, fan theories and all of that, and I can't, and I've rewatched it, and I've been trying to, and every time I watch it, I do enjoy it a little bit more. So maybe once I've watched it a few more times, it'll be higher up on the list, but for now, it's quite low. Some of you are going to be really annoyed that I decided to put The Never-Ending Story 2 above The Shining. But honestly, I enjoyed this film so much when I was little, and to this day, when I bought it again, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's not as good as the first one, but I thoroughly enjoy it. The Phantom Menace, while it's not as bad as everyone makes it seem, and I have to say, Qui-Gon Jinn by Liam Neeson is one of my favorite Jedi of all time. I do understand why people don't like this film, but I still really enjoyed it. True Grit, it's a cowboy movie starring John Wayne. How can you not love it? It's definitely one of his more memorable roles, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, it does at times just feel like another John Wayne film, although it does have an incredibly compelling story. If you did enjoy this, I would highly recommend the remake they made. That one was just absolutely incredible as well. And then we get Bionicle 3, which in my opinion was the worst of the first three films. It's enjoyable at times. There's definitely a lot of nostalgia in there for me, but definitely not as good as the first two. We're getting another box set here, and this time I'm going to be talking about The Last Night, which was just it made me so angry as a Star Wars fan. There was so much I didn't like. The action was solid, and again, I love Mark Wahlberg, and anything with Optimus Prime, in my opinion, is an absolute win. But when I was sitting in the movie theater, the last night actually made me really angry at times. One of my favorite movie franchises of all time, Mad Max, but I just have to say the third one, it just wasn't good. It was really, really corny at times, very, very cheesy. While I did enjoy the overall aesthetic, and Mel Gibson is just absolutely incredible, it's just the worst of the original trilogy. Mission Impossible 3, I love pretty much anything to do with Tom Cruise, but in my opinion, this is the worst of the Mission Impossible franchise. Another film lots of people are going to be disappointed is so low on the list is Ghostbusters. And while I did enjoy it, I guess it's not my film. I love the theme song. Theme song was even my ringtone for a short period of time. But I definitely actually preferred the series more than the actual movie, which is quite a surprise. Terminator 3, I loved it as a child, but after I've watched all of the Terminator films, I can say it's probably the weakest in the franchise. But, you know, if you turn your brain off, the action is definitely still there. You can enjoy it. Expendables 3 had an absolutely awesome cast, but it just never appealed to me the way the first two did. And especially at the end, I just felt like the final battle, there was just so much thrown against the wall, and they were just hoping that something would stick, and nothing really did. Probably the standout thing about this film to me was just Mel Gibson as the bad guy, which is just so flipping awesome. I did not see that coming at all, and I really enjoyed it. And then we get Kill Bill, which is an awesome stylized film. I really, really enjoyed it. The first time I watched it, the amount of gore blew me away, and I watched this with my mom when I was quite little, and she was like, what is going on? It's stylized, it's awesome, lots of violence, lots of destruction and everything, but in my opinion, definitely not as good as the second one. Then we get Iron Man 2, which is honestly not as bad as everyone makes it out. I don't understand the hate for this film. I really do enjoy it. Bad guy was awesome. He was wasted, okay? But there were moments where you just saw the potential of the character, and in those few moments, I really enjoyed it. Iron Man versus War Machine is just awesome, okay? And it built up the rest of the MCU. Come on, guys. The Incredible Hulk, I understand why people call this one the black sheep of the MCU. And while I've got mixed feelings about this film, I really want them to bring Abomination back. The whole Edward Norton thing is really, really unfortunate, but we got Mark Ruffalo in the end, which is awesome. I would just really like to see Abomination come back. That would be flipping awesome, guys. Please, if we ever get anything to do with Hulk ever again, we have to bring Abomination in. Then we just got two, you know, biblical Jesus films. I just have to say, they're not as good as the book. Read the book, it's much better. Next we have Highlander Endgame, the original Endgame. No, but honestly, it's a definite step down from the original Highlander film, but it's much, much better than the second film. But to be 100% honest, this film did a great job of tying both the movies and the series together. The series was awesome, the first movie was awesome, and you know what, this film really ties the two together. So if you enjoy the series or the first movie, I'd recommend this film. Next we get Alex Rider Stormbreaker, and I just have to say, as a kid, this movie really, really appealed to me. I got both of the graphic novels to read them out, because I'm definitely more of a comics guy than an actual books guy. I understand that there were a lot more books than a graphics novel. Now I've got an off topic. This film really appealed to me as you know, I was going through high school and stuff, because it is a high school kid as a spy. Who doesn't flipping love that stuff? And then we get the first Amazing Spider-Man. I have to say that I really, really enjoy the suits, and that was probably my biggest frustration with the second film, is that they actually got rid of the suits. Andrew Garfield is just awesome. He's really, really enjoyable. And the Lizard, I feel like they could have done more with him, but he was a really interesting character. The action was solid in this film. It just didn't stand up to the Sam Raimi films, in my opinion. Talking of the Sam Raimi trilogy, we have got Spider-Man 3, which is of course the worst of the original trilogy. But when I watched this as a kid, people are going to hate me for this. When I watched this when it first came out, it was honestly probably my favorites. I loved Venom. I loved Sandman. I loved the idea that, you know, Spider-Man had to take on two villains. I loved Green Goblin coming in at the end, becoming a good guy. I honestly really wanted them to make a film with Spider-Man and Green Goblin teaming up, and we kind of got that at the end of the third one. Honestly, looking back, I can understand why now lots of people didn't enjoy this film, but the little kid inside of me still really jumps for joy at it. And then we've got another 2-for-1, which is Left Behind, and I really don't think you can separate these two films, not only because, you know, they're in the same box, but like the first two are so incredibly linked. The acting is very wooden at times, but I think it's an incredibly, incredibly interesting story, and it's a very, very cool adaptation to the Book of Revelations in the Bible. If you're into like sci-fi, thriller, spiritual, fantasy, all of that sort of stuff rolled into one, with a little bit of theology of course thrown in there, it's a good series of films. And then we get Bionicle 2, which was honestly, these were the Toa that I got, me and my brother got when we were growing up. I remember when we first got our original Bionicles, he got Vekoma, and like I was super jealous and everything. But these Bionicles made my childhood. So watching the film, every time I watch the film, I just get so childish and happy and everything. So it's not the best film, but it really has a special place in my heart. And then we get Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, which is honestly, I probably watched this film more than any other Transformers film. It's definitely not the best one, but I have so much fun watching it. I mean, the action scenes are awesome. The comedy, while a little bit offensive at times, really just gets me. I enjoyed it, I really did. Talking about Transformers, now we have Age of Extinction, and I think it was a really, really good idea that they decided to take a departure from the original trilogy, introducing new human characters. Mark Wahlberg is just so flipping cool. Optimus Prime is just the best. I love his new look. It's definitely a turn your brain off type of movie, but it's still a lot of fun to watch. And then we get Predator, which is honestly just a really cool mold of military film with just science fiction action. So if you're a huge 80s movie fan and you like action and all of that, and you're a huge fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'd highly recommend this film. And now we're going back to the DC box set, and we're talking about Justice League, which was probably my biggest disappointment of a film ever. Words cannot describe my annoyance. Rewatching it with my lower expectations, it's an enjoyable film, but especially with what we got with Avengers, and then how disappointing Justice League was, that's why it's not higher on the list. And then we get iRobot, which was, again, this has a very, very special place in my heart. I remember the first time I ever watched this film was with my friend Mitchell, and it was the first film I ever actually analyzed, and I was like, oh, why does Will Smith always shower like this? Why does he only work out one of his arms? It's the first film I ever properly engaged with, like on an analytical level, if that makes sense. And honestly, I think that this is a film that really impacted my love for science fiction. I always enjoyed science fiction, but I think this film is kind of what pushed it into loving. Following that, we get Thor. Again, I think this is a really, really good origin film. It's incredibly, incredibly small in scale when you think about it. The entire battle just takes place in one small city, which is quite rare for an MCU film right now. I mean, everything is always, world-ending and stuff like that. But this is an incredibly, incredibly personal story. Loki is an incredibly interesting villain. This is a good film. I'm going to put these two together once again. Olympus Has Fallen and London Has Fallen. And you know what? They're just awesome, awesome, awesome action films. If you really want to watch just a flipping badass, kill all the bad guys, I would highly recommend this. Gerald Butler is just so freaking badass. And then we get Kill Bill 2, which honestly is such an enjoyable movie. For the first one being so focused on action and with so much blood and everything, this one feels a lot more grounded in reality. There's this one scene where Uma Thurman's character, she gets stuck in this, grave. She has to dig her way through the dirt. Oh, I get shivers every time I watch that scene. And the final confrontation with Bill, it's not the, heavy action that you'd expect. It's a lot more personal, and they engage as characters, and you really see their relationship. I really enjoy this film, I think, a lot more than it deserves to be enjoyed. And then we get The Expendables. Ooh, when I watched this for the first time, I was like, oh, no stuffing way. Just endless action with just the greatest action stars ever. Seriously, if you enjoy action movies and you haven't watched this film yet, I don't understand why you haven't. Seriously, go watch it. And now we get another 2-for-1, and these are the two Peter Cushing Dalek films. These films actually took me by surprise. I didn't know I was getting them when I ordered them. I honestly thought I was getting William Hartnell Doctor Who Dalek episodes. And when this came through and I put it on the DVD machine, it blew my mind because, it was in color, firstly. It wasn't black and white. There were different actors. It was a different story that followed similar threads and plot lines. But, it's not Doctor Who the series. It's Doctor Who movies. And it's just really, really cool. If you haven't watched these yet, I'd highly recommend it. And then we get Courageous, which is honestly just a really, really heartwarming story. It's about fathers looking after their families, their relationships with God. Really, really good stuff. I'd highly recommend it to anyone, absolutely anyone. You have to watch this film. And then we get Transformers Dark of the Moon, which was, of course, the third film ending the original trilogy. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. Optimus Prime is just such a flipping badass when he gets his ultimate mode. Oh, I freaking love it. And then we get Captain America, which honestly, he's my favorite Avenger, so of course I really enjoyed this movie. But I think it's a very, very good introduction for the character, getting to watch him in World War II, how he starts off with this weak and really, really skinny dude, and becomes Captain America, he's just so flipping cool, and it's a good film, I enjoy it. Following that, we get the film that started off the MCU, Iron Man. I rewatched this again, literally just a few days before filming this video. And it is just a lot of fun. It really, really is. I actually remember the first time I ever watched this movie was at a drive-in. You remember those things, Flip? I remember just sitting in the back seats and I couldn't quite see this film properly because the seat was in the way. So it's kind of sitting like this with my chin on the seat. And I was watching the movie, but I really enjoyed it. And we get another box set, and we are going to be talking about Back to the Future 3. You know what, it was a really, really cool departure. You know, we had experienced it pretty much the same times for the first two films. Going all the way back to the Wild West was definitely a departure, but I just really didn't enjoy it as much as the first two Back to the Future films. And then we get Terminator Salvation, and honestly, when I saw that this movie was coming out, it blew my little mind, because of course I'm a huge fan of the Terminator franchise, and to find out that we were finally going to the future to actually watch this battle was a really, really cool idea, and I was looking forward to it. And when I watched it, I really, really enjoyed it. I understand why some people don't enjoy it, but I did. This is my list, I'm putting it up there. Following that, we go back to my Superman box sets, and we're going to be talking about Superman Returns, and honestly I think it's a very, very, very good spiritual successor to the Christopher Reeves films. I think Brandon Routh actually did a really, really good job. I don't think people give him enough credit for that role, but again, Superman Returns, it's a solid film. And then we get Episode 2, Star Wars The Clone Wars, and honestly that final battle sequence is just so freaking awesome when you see the arrival of the clones, when you watch all the Jedi fighting off all the droids. Oh, it is just freaking awesome, and I actually really enjoy Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker. Another MCU film, we have got Doctor Strange, and while I do think it was a good film, I think it demystified him a lot, and that's what I didn't like. I always enjoy Doctor Strange, strangely enough. I enjoy him more when he's in other people's films, when he's just this all-powerful wizard. You know, seeing him, and of course we have to see him get introduced and everything, but seeing him grow demystified him a lot for me, and I prefer seeing him in other people's films, but still, great film. And then we get Death Race, and I do not understand why we don't have a proper Death Race video game. I mean, this entire concept would work so well in a video game, and no one's just properly taken advantage from it, from my opinion. But again, Jason Statham is awesome, and it's just an incredible film to watch. Awesome action, awesome practical effects, I really enjoyed it. Following that, we get Terminator Janssens. I even made a YouTube video about this film, so you guys know my opinions on this film. I really, really enjoyed it. It got a lot more hate than it deserves, but this is a film that I thoroughly enjoyed. Then we get Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which in my opinion, and it's my opinion, okay, it's just my opinion, is better than the first one. I really, really enjoyed the idea of, you know, Peter Quill meeting up with his father, and there's this entire relationship with Yondu, and the ending I just thought was perfect. It's a fun film, good action, good story. And then we get Expendables 2, which is my favorite of the Expendables films, and it is simply because everyone is in it. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger is in it, Bruce Willis is in it, Jean-Claude Van Damme is the bad guy. Oh, I flipping love. Awesome action movie, go watch it. This film is going to annoy some people, I know that already, but it is Power Rangers, and I'm a huge, huge Power Rangers fan. So to watch this in live action was really a dream come true for me. I know lots of people didn't enjoy it, but the kid in me loves it, and even if I take all of that out, I think it's really got a really, really good story, some really interesting characters, great action. I recommend it. Following that, we get Apocalypto. Sorry guys, I'm getting tired. This has been a long video. We get Apocalypto, and this is a film unlike anything I've ever watched before. It's incredibly, incredibly unique. I would highly recommend you guys watch it. Mel Gibson did a great job directing this film. And then we get Revenge of the Sith, in my opinion, the greatest of the prequel movies. Just great storytelling, a flipping awesome final battle, and you know what, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, sue me. Back to the DC box sets, we have Wonder Woman. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. It really was so much better than I was expecting it to be. I really was just disappointed by the final battle. To me, that wasn't even a battle, that was like a dialogue. But up until that point, good action, good comedy, brilliant acting. Now we go back to the Superman box set, and we're going to be talking about Superman 2, which was a really good film. Really interesting to see Superman without his powers, but in my opinion, it's honestly just dwarfed by how good the first film was. Then we get Spider-Man 2, which honestly is a lot of people's favorite live-action Spider-Man film. I understand why. It is a very, very, very good film. Great action, good character development. I honestly just preferred the first one. And then we get Black Panther, and honestly, I just love Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. I could watch 100 different movies with Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther, and I would just keep watching them all. He is so flipping charismatic. He is so likable. He can lead the MCU in my opinion. Following that, we get the next Spider-Man live-action film that everyone thinks is the greatest Spider-Man film ever, and again, I disagree, but it is really, really cool. It is awesome to see, you know, the MCU version of Spider-Man on the big screen. After watching him in Civil War, I couldn't wait for this film. Tom Holland, his portrayal is absolutely just lovable and adorable, and you just want to be like, oh, he's just like your best friend. I feel like me and Spider-Man would really get along. Coming back to the Transformers box set, we've got Bumblebee, which honestly was a really, really, really good film. So much better than I was expecting it to be. Bumblebee made me care about Bumblebee so much more than I had in previous films. Great film, really, really touching story as well. I feel like I said I'd highly recommend it a lot in this video, but you know what? I highly recommend a lot of these films. Honestly, from this point on, I highly recommend every film you're going to see. And next we get, in my opinion, the best live-action Spider-Man film. I love Tobey Maguire. I really, really enjoyed this version of the Green Goblin. Their dynamic was awesome. It was tense. That final battle really had me on the edge of my seat. Every time I watch it, it's just so brutal. Oh, and like, oh, I get goosebumps because it's scary. It is. It's a scary fight to watch. Next, we get a film that gets a lot of hate, and I do not understand why. Batman vs Superman is honestly in my opinion, it's just, I loved it. I do not, okay, I understand why lots of people didn't like it, but the Snyder Cut was awesome. Henry Cavill is just legendary as Superman. Ben Affleck blew me away as Batman. Their fight, while I think it was a little bit too short, was really, really hectic. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time, and the build-up and their first confrontation is just flipping riveting, and I got so many goosebumps. And then we get Mad Max. I flipping love this film. The absolute perfect film about revenge. And you know, just losing someone you care about and how you just have to avenge him. Mel Gibson, this was his first proper film performance, and he just was absolutely awesome in it. The directing was awesome. The practical effects were awesome. This entire movie was just awesome. Going back to the DC box sets, we have got Man of Steel, which to date is my favorite DCEU film. Henry Cavill was awesome. The action blew my mind. I mean, this was the most powerful Superman we'd ever seen on screen. And then we get Lethal Weapon 3, honestly one of the greatest buddy cop movies ever. You know, Danny Glover, Mel Gibson, they were just awesome together. They had so much chemistry. The humor was awesome, the action was awesome, the story was awesome. Awesome film, awesome, awesome, awesome. The only thing more awesome than Lethal Weapon 3 is Lethal Weapon 2. Everything that's good about Lethal Weapon 3 is in Lethal Weapon 2. Lethal Weapon as a franchise is one of those few films where the film stayed consistently good. The quality never went down, it got better. It just was always at just peak brilliance. And then we get my personal favorite Transformers film, the very, very first one. I had just finished watching Transformers Cybertron, the series, when I watched this for the first time. And this film just blew me away. The special effects were incredible. Seeing Optimus Prime, you're a fanboy of Optimus Prime a lot. Seeing Optimus Prime in live action really was just a dream come true for me. Back to the Future box sets, we've got Back to the Future, the first one, which I know lots of people weren't expecting, but honestly, the first one, it was incredibly engaging. It is this movie franchise is what really got me started on my addiction and my love of time travel. Marty McFly is awesome as a character. Doc Brown, absolutely crazy and awesome to watch. Back to the Future franchise, we have got Back to the Future 2, which in my opinion was just the best one. And that's simply because they go to the future, and I love that, you know, that entire portion of the film where they go to the future. Again, that's just a science fiction nerd in me that really enjoys it. But it's got the same story as the first one. Them going back in time to relive the events of the first film, just from a different angle, was also an incredibly, incredibly cool thing to see as a fan of the first film. But guys, seriously, this entire franchise as a whole, go watch it. Again, I'm going to say it, I highly recommend it. Then we get Terminator, I'm just so tired, guys. Okay, then we get Terminator, and this is another film that really just solidified my love for the science fiction genre. It is incredibly scary. It is incredibly, the story is just, riveting. You really, really get a sense of the dread that these characters are facing. Arnold Schwarzenegger is a scary dude. And we get Civil War, which honestly is the ultimate film if you want to watch your superheroes just battle it out. Really, really cool story. Emotional story. Steve Rogers and Tony Stark, their story is just really, really engaging. And you know, the debate you can have about, the Sokovia Accords, me and my family, we still talk about it. Which side should you be on? It's a really engaging story, and the talks you can have about this film are a lot deeper than a lot of people realize. And then it's the big one, the Avengers. Oh my word, I have watched the final fight in this movie so many times. I remember there was this one night I was at a LAN, and instead of gaming, I literally just watched the final fight over and over again from like 6 at night to 6 in the morning, just rewatching it. People were getting annoyed with me because I wasn't playing with them, and I was like, I don't care, I'm watching Avengers. Honestly, that final battle was just awesome, but seeing these characters all interact with each other for the first time is any nerd's dream come true. And then we get Edge of Tomorrow, which is also called Live, Die, Repeat, depending on which country you're in, which is quite interesting. You should look that up. You should really read about that. It's an interesting story, actually. But the entire story of this film is also incredibly, incredibly interesting. This idea of living your life over and over again every time you die, or just that one day. Lots of video game vibes from this. I would have actually really enjoyed if they made a video game out of this movie. I think that would be flipping awesome. I can't wait for the sequel. And then we get Mad Max Fury Road, which is a lot of people's favorite film in the franchise, and I can understand why. It is very, very beautiful. It's an incredibly beautiful film. The action is incredible. Tom Hardy does a great job as Max. Next, we get Dracula Untold, which is honestly just such a flipping badass movie. Luke Evans is just flipping killing it in this role. I'm so flipping annoyed that they're not making a sequel for this. If I had to choose for one sequel to be made out of any movie ever, it'll be Dracula Untold 2. Honestly, if you haven't watched this movie yet, go watch it. Again, I highly recommend it. Following that, we get, in my opinion, the greatest musical ever, The Greatest Showman, and this movie has just got all of the feels. If you want to feel happy, if you want to feel sad, if you want to feel invigorated, if you want to feel just, yes, I can take on the world, watch this movie. The soundtrack is awesome. I bought the CD, I listened to it on my way from work, I listened to it while I'm at work, I listened to it on the way back home. I flipping love this movie. Everyone should watch this movie. Everyone needs this movie in their lives. And then we get The Last Samurai, which is honestly so historically inaccurate. I just have to say Tom Cruise killed it. He was awesome in this role. I think that this is actually the movie that got me to love Tom Cruise. He's just awesome in everything he's in. But honestly, this film just gets me right in the feels. The ending, I'm not going to tell you what happens, redacted, boo. But honestly, great, great film. If you haven't yet, please watch it. The story is awesome. The action is awesome. You get invested in this guy's life so much. Great film, I highly recommend it. Again, I said it, I'm sorry guys. And then we get one of the most badass movies of all time, the original Lethal Weapon, and I did talk about how the last two films aren't any worse than this one, and that's true. In my opinion, all of these films are the exact same caliber. I just have a personal connection to this first one, and I can't seem to ever take it off my top 10 favorite movies of all time lists. I've made tons of lists in preparation for this. And I can't ever seem to kick this off my top 10. And then we get Hacksaw Ridge, which in my opinion is honestly one of the best made movies of all time. The sound design, the acting, the performances, the directing, it all takes place in this film. And this film has just everything you could ever want. It's got comedy, romance, drama, action, suspense, horror. The action sequences in this film are actually scary. Oh, I remember watching it for the first time. Like, you watch action movies to be, you enjoy the action. I was scared of the action in this film. And it's an incredibly, incredibly powerful story. If you haven't yet, say it with me guys. I highly recommend it. Cool, we've made it to the top 5 films guys. This is quite exciting for me, although I'm ready to receive quite a bit of backlash for this. Number 5, we have got The Road Warrior Mad Max. Honestly, this film is just absolutely legendary. Mel Gibson absolutely kills it in this role. It's an incredible departure from the first film. I think this is how sequels should be made. They raise the stakes. They make everything 10 times more awesome, 10 times more badass. Guys, this is a film that any post-apocalyptic fan has to watch. Coming back to my Superman box set, we are talking about the greatest Superman film of all time, and that is Superman, the movie starring Christopher Reeves. And I can tell you right now, that movie is the one that got me to love superheroes. Christopher Reeves just plays the role so well, and he is definitely a superhero you can fall in love with. And then we got Terminator 2, which is honestly, I cry every time I watch this movie. And if you've watched this movie, you know exactly why, but the story is just absolutely incredible. The themes it tackles are just so incredibly incredible. Everything about this movie is so incredibly incredible. I'm not going to say I highly recommend it because this is my top 3 and I highly recommend them. Following that, we have got the best film in the MCU to date, Captain America, The Winter Soldier. Oh my word, this is the ultimate superhero spy film in my opinion. The story is incredible, it's engaging, it's suspenseful, and the Winter Soldier himself is such an incredibly interesting character. The dynamic between Captain America and the Winter Soldier is so incredibly, it's just so heartfelt and you feel it every single time. I'm with you till the end of the line. So flipping deep, and honestly the best MCU film in my opinion. And so now we get to my favorite DVD in my collection, and I'm actually really worried to show you guys this because I feel like some people are going to love that this is my favorite and others are absolutely going to hate that this is my favorite. But here we go. It is Highlander, starring Christopher Lambert, and honestly this is one of my favorite films of all time. It is such an incredibly unique story, the story of the immortal Connor MacLeod. Honestly, Connor MacLeod is one of my favorite characters of any movie ever. Such an incredibly interesting story. They told 2 parallel stories, one in the present day when that movie came out, which was in the 80s, one in ancient Scotland, and you just engage so much with this character. I'm honestly going to make a YouTube video dedicated to Highlander itself. That's how much I love it. But guys, we made it. Oh my word. This video took so much longer than I expected. My battery's busy, my camera battery's busy flashing at me, letting me know that we're running out of time. But guys, I would love to know what you guys think. Do you guys think that my list makes sense, or do you think my list is just a load of rubbish? Do you think that lots of other films should be higher to the top? Do you think others should be much, much lower? I would love to know what you guys think. This was all just my opinion again, and I'd love to know what you guys think. If you haven't yet, please hit the subscription button. Do not be afraid to hit that bell for notifications. I'll see you in the next video. You're awesome. I'll see you then.